All right, it looks like we are ready to go. All right, so good morning, everyone. I'll be calling our regular meeting of the Santa Cruz Library Facilities Financing Authority to order and asking for a roll call, please.
Director Palacios.
Here.
Director Goldstein.
Here.
Director Hoffaker.
Here.
Chair Legault.
Here, thank you. So the next item on our agenda is additional materials. Are there any additional materials to add to our agenda today?
There are no additional materials, Chair.
Great. Any additions or deletions to the agenda?
No additions or deletions to this agenda.
Great. Okay, well, we'll move into oral communications. So this is the time of the meeting that any member of the audience may address the board on any matter either on or off the agenda that's within the board's jurisdiction. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak during this time of the meeting?
Chair Legault, there do not appear to be any public comments.
Okay. So we will close that public comment period and move on to our library director's report. So I'll pass it off to Director Wilburn.
Thank you, Chair Legault. I have attached my library director's report for June 2022 in your meeting packet. There are just a couple of items that I wanted to call the board's attention to, and that is that we are anticipating the grand reopening of our Garfield Park Library. That will take place on June 11th. And that will take place from 12 to 4. And then on June 15th, we are going to be holding our Aptos Library groundbreaking ceremony. So we hope you all can come out for that. It's going to be at 12:30, from 12:30 to 1 on June 15th. Thank you. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Seeing none, I'll just say I'm also excited to see we're getting a save the date for the Scotts Valley Library reopening, and was just there last week and stuck my head in, and it's looking great. And so we're really excited to see that happen. Okay, so we will move on to our consent agenda. Looks like we just have one item on our consent agenda, the minutes from our previous meeting. So would anyone like to pull an item from the consent agenda from our board today, or are we ready for a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I would move approval, Chair. Second.
Great. Roll call vote, please.
Director Palacios.
Yes.
Director Goldstein.
Aye.
Director Hoffaker.
Yes.
Chair Legault.
Yes. All right, that motion passes unanimously, and we'll move on to our general business. So the first item on our general business agenda is the revised annual meeting schedule for 2022.
Thank you, Chair Legault. We are bringing this item. We have had some questions from our board, as you may know, with regard to our meeting schedule. And so this item is asking that the board adopt the revised annual meeting schedule for the remainder of 2022. This is to help us better coincide with the actual schedule or quarterly report dates. And so the meetings will have our quarterly statistics, our quarterly financial documents, and those will all be presented to the board. And so with the proposed dates, we would be continuing with the scheduled meeting in August as scheduled, August 4th. In October, there would be no meeting held in the month of October. And then the next meeting would be held November 3rd. And that would coincide with the end of the quarterly statements that the board can then review. There would be no meeting in December, and then the board will go ahead and do the schedule for 2023 at a future meeting, but I'm anticipating that it too would follow a similar schedule.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions from our board members or concerns about that adjusted schedule? Jamie?
Sorry, I was having a little trouble raising my hand. So this is for the LFFA. It's related to the questions I was asking where, okay. So Edith, you're comfortable with the schedule that we'll be able to get the information we need, approve it in a timely fashion,
Yes.
perform the oversight? Great. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from board members? Are there any public comments on this item?
Chair Legault, there are no public comments.
Okay, well, I have no issues or questions about this change in schedule, so would entertain a motion to approve the revised annual meeting schedule.
I'll move approval of the revised meeting schedule.
Second.
Thank you, and a roll call vote, please.
Director Palacios,
Yes.
Director Goldstein,
Yes.
Director Hoffaker,
Yes.
Chair Legault.
Yes. All right, that motion carries unanimously, and we'll move on to the next item of general business, which is our Library Facilities Financing Authority budgets for the fiscal year 22-23.
Good morning, Edith Driscoll, your Controller Treasurer. The item before you is the final adoption of your budgets for next year. As noted in the report, the proposed budgets were presented to the board on May 5th for discussion. There was no changes approved to that budget. And so the same budget is coming back to you as a final budget. Reminder to the public, this is simply the budgets for debt service and a few professional services charges related to that debt service. And we have two budgets here, your general budget and then your debt service budget. Since there was no changes, I don't have any additional information to present, but I am available for questions.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions from the board regarding this budget?
I had a question. I was just wondering about the distribution in the budget. It says that the City of Santa Cruz is fully distributed. Is that correct? Explain that to me, given that, have they drawn down all the money already? That's what I'm confused about.
Let me refresh my memory here. The city of Capitola has, and the county of Santa Cruz is fully distributed, not the city, unless that's the chart. Is there a misstatement within the report?
No, that I was just, because it says 98.65% distributed for the city of Santa Cruz.
That's the percent of the whole. That's the percent that is applied when funds come in. So as we receive 2 or 3 times a year, your entities receive PAYGO. And in addition, we will be doing at some point, your board may choose to do a bond issue, but this is the distribution of additional PAYGO.
Okay, I understand. I was
that's okay.
confused. I thought that was the total capacity, but we're just looking at.
No,
what
let's go back
already-
and remember that
Yeah.
when we have PAYGO, meaning funds have been received because it's being put on taxpayers' charges, when that money comes in, the first call on PAYGO, we call it PAYGO, first call on PAYGO is debt service. So once the debt service has been made, then if there's anything left over, it gets distributed based on the percentages that your board has approved over time. A couple of those entities, for example, Capitola was one of the first entities to fully receive their allocated amount of $10 million. So they don't receive any more PAYGO because they have fully received their maximum amount.
So in essence, everybody is already fully distributed. So the next bond issue will be just for the city of Santa Cruz.
Correct. Unless I hear differently, the city of Scotts Valley will continue to receive just PAYGO amounts. unless at the time that we come back to you for a bond, whenever your board is ready to approve a bond, your board would determine whether City of Scotts Valley is going to receive any of those bond funds or if they are fully going to be the City of Santa Cruz. That's correct. And we're talking about the third bond issue.
Okay, got it. And have we done, have we had our bond counselor, our financial person do an analysis of bonding capacity remaining yet? I don't know, Matt, if you've done it, or Edith, if you've done it recently.
We did it. Suzanne Harold is under contract with your board for the third issuance. And I know Member Goldstein had a few questions and additional analysis was prepared at that time. I don't recall the exact details of that analysis. But
Yeah,
if your board requests, we can certainly have her do that and bring it back to you at a future date.
Yeah, I would leave that up to the city when the timing is right. I'm just concerned because I know we talked about for years about the potential of raising interest rates and what that would do to the capacity.
Yes.
And now it's actually happening. And so
yes.
it seems like at some point we should do an analysis for the city so that they can start, getting the budget in order and figuring out the timing of their issuance.
Yes, I would just remind everyone, once a bond is issued, it's with the, you sign in writing that the funds will be materially spent within 3 years. So it should be within a realistic window of when you think you're going to go to construction or begin that work. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Huffaker.
No, thanks for that, Edith. And I appreciate you raising it, Carlos, because with the current interest rate environment, I think it does warrant some analysis, just so we're being intentional around timing and potential capacity, what impacts it could have.
So if I could clarify, are you taking action by requesting a document such as that to be prepared?
I think we can discuss that, Edith, along with Yolande and our finance team. I don't know that we need to have it as a formal action today, but I would first want to kind of look at timing before directing it at this point.
Thank you.
Does that work for you, Director Palacios?
That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, great. If there are no other questions or comments from board members, I'll ask if there's any public comment on this budget.
Chair Legault, there are no public comments.
Okay, well, if there's no further discussion from the board, I would entertain a motion to approve this budget.
I move approval of the LFFA budget.
Second.
And a roll call vote, please.
Director Palacios,
Yes.
Director Goldstein,
Aye.
Director Huffaker,
Yes.
Chair Legault.
Yes, that motion passes unanimously, and we will move on to project updates and comments by board members. Any of our board members have comments or updates they'd like to share? All right, I already made my comment about the Scotts Valley Library, so we can move on with the scheduled upcoming meetings. So it looks like our next meeting would be on August 4th at 9 a.m. And do we have a location for that meeting yet?
We anticipate that will be via Zoom. We have received some software and hardware we're testing right now with regard to if we can do hybrid meetings more efficiently and effectively. But at this time, we're anticipating it will be via Zoom.
Okay. Any other discussion about our scheduled upcoming meetings? All right, then looks like we are ready to adjourn the Library Financing Authority meeting, and we will move into our second meeting of the morning, which is our Library Joint Powers Authority. Let me pull up that agenda. So call to order the Santa Cruz City County Libraries Joint Power Authority Board meeting, regular meeting here on Thursday, June 2nd, 2022. So could we have a roll call, please?
Director Palacios,
Here.
Director Goldstein,
Here,
Director Hoffaker,
Present?
Chair Lago.
Here, thank you. Are there any additional materials for this agenda?
Chair, there are no additional materials. However, I will just note a correction on the agenda. The revised agenda that was posted listed an email correspondence under item 3, addition and deletions. It should not have been posted there. The additional correspondence should have been attached, just for your information, and added as an email correspondence under the additional materials. So at this point, the board has seen that information, but that would be the adjustment there. And then with regard to additions and deletions to the agenda, we have under item number 9, a presentation, item 9B was scheduled to take place today regarding the library's work with our Santa Cruz County Correctional Facilities. However, our librarian is out sick today, and so she will come back and do that presentation at a different time. So that will be removed today.
Thank you. Any questions from the board members regarding either of those items? Good. Okay, well, thank you for that clarification, and we can move on to our oral communications portion of this agenda. So again, this is an opportunity for members of the audience to address this board on any matter either on or off the agenda that's within the board's jurisdiction. So do we have any members of the public who would like to speak to the board this morning?
Chair Legault, there is one public comment. Grace Stetson, your mic is on. You have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Hi there, everyone. I'm Grace Stetson. I'm one of the correspondents of Lookout Santa Cruz. I believe I've spoken with a few of you previously for articles. I'd love to hear a little bit more about everything that's in the pipeline with the Measure S updates. Obviously, there is a lot of groundbreaking and construction underway, but what is that really looking like for the remainder of this year of how we're going to bring more of these library services to our community and just addressing that countywide? That is my question.
Great, thank you for that. Any other members of the public?
Chair Legault, I do not see additional public comments.
Okay, great. Well, I imagine you'll hear a little bit of the answer to your question, Grace, here in our library director's report, but would also invite you to connect directly with our library director, Wilburn, for additional details on answering your question. So with that, we'll move on to our report by our library director, Director Wilburn.
Thank you, Chair Legault. My director's report is attached for your convenience. A couple of the items that I do want to mention: we are continuing to recruit and hire for many of our positions. As you know, we are reopening many of our libraries, and so staff who were kind of helping out at other locations are now returning to their locations. And we have a need to fill a number of positions. That recruitment continues to be ongoing for a variety of positions with regard to our internet technology team, our library assistants who work our front desks. We've got some heavy recruitment going on there, as well as for our management analyst. And so some of the interview processes have closed. However, we're still interviewing and screening applicants. In addition, I just want to call attention to, as you mentioned, Scotts Valley. I've mentioned our other grand openings, Garfield Park on June 11th from 12 to 4, the Aptos groundbreaking, June 15th, 12:30 to 1. And then we do have our Scotts Valley Library branch that we are anticipating will reopen in mid-July. We're still just working a little bit with the dates on that one because we do have, again, some of those staffing shortages with our IT people and then some supply chain. We want to make sure we have everything ready to go. In addition, I would just want to call everyone's attention to our summer reading program. This is June 2nd, and so our summer reading program has begun. You can sign up online, and I've also included in our packet today the summer event calendar because I think it gives the board a good look at all of the great programs that we're going to be doing over the summer and the variety of locations where those programs are going to be taking place. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions from board members? Okay, any comments from the public regarding the library director's report?
Chair Legault, I do not see any public comments.
Okay, great. And hopefully, Grace, you're seeing that summer schedule and how it relates to what's happening at the libraries. And as I said, please feel free to follow up with Director Wilburn for more information.
And Chair Legault, she does have her hand up. Oh, she did have her hand up again. It's gone.
Okay, great.
No, it's back. Okay. Shall I take the comment?
Yes, please.
All right. Grace, go ahead.
Sorry, I thought Q&A would be functioning. Thank you so much. I am wondering, can you share a little bit more about the staffing shortages? That would be important for us to make note of in the piece as well.
Is that your only question, Grace?
That is, yes.
Okay, great.
Sure.
Thank you. Director Wilburn, do you have a brief summary of how that's going with staffing?
Yeah, it sounds like I'm happy to reach out to Grace after the meeting and we can connect on information it sounds like she needs for an article. And I'm happy to work with her on that.
Great, thank you. Okay, well, and if there's no other comments from our board, we'll go ahead and accept the library director's report. And we can move on to our report by the Friends of the Santa Cruz Public Libraries. And I see Bruce is on with us this morning. Good morning, Bruce.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Legault and members of the board. As always, appreciate the opportunity to give a brief report on the activity of the Friends of the last month or so. In the last month, we've had the pleasure of providing checks to the library for their annual request for support, which was in the order of $53,000. This funds the summer reading program, which we've talked about a little bit already, as well as enhancements to lendable technology and a number of other items. In addition to the contribution that came from our board, I'd also like to note that each one of our individual chapters contributed to that as well. So I thank them for their support of the summer reading program in particular. Also, we've provided the first release of funds from the Realizing the Promise campaign to Brands of 40 for some children's furniture. I believe that acceptance of both of these distributions is on your consent calendar. Several of our board members had raised questions about the Downtown Library and Affordable Housing project. And so we convened a meeting with Abe Jason and Katie Stewart of Jason Architects to get all of those questions answered. In addition to the board, we had several other interested individuals from the community. It was a very valuable meeting, deepened our understanding of the project and just how important it is. Following that, at our last board of directors meeting, the board voted unanimously to support a statement opposing the Our Downtown, Our Future campaign for ballot to bring this to a redecision by the community and restating our absolute commitment to the downtown library and affordable housing project as it currently is presented. Boulder Creek donor event and grand opening went extremely well. People love the facility. It looks very beautiful and very open. I want to thank our board member, Cindy Jackson, and also Diane Cohen of the library staff. There's a lot of work going through all these names of donors over 2.5 years. Make sure everybody's recognized, make sure everybody's appropriately thanked. And they've done a great job on that. We look forward to the same success next weekend at the Garfield Park donor event, which will be on the 10th, and the opening, grand opening on the 11th. And I would finally note we're working on the Aptos groundbreaking as well, which is coming up about a week and a half from now. Want to thank our generous supporters at New Leaf Market who have offered to provide snacks and drinks at that event. So, and we look forward to seeing Scotts Valley reopen as well in July. So thank you for your time. Any questions? I'm happy to take them.
Thank you, Bruce. Are there any questions or comments from our board members? Looks like there aren't. Thank you so much, Bruce, for all of your work. Are there any members of the public who'd like to comment on Bruce's report?
Chair Legault, let's give our audience just a moment. I sent a chat message to them, letting them know that we use the Q&A feature, and then they're also welcome to raise their hand. But at this time, I don't see any public comment.
Okay. So thank you so much, Bruce, for all of your work. And we will next move on to our report by the Library Advisory Commission. And I see Lindsay's on with us today as well.
Good morning, board members. Thank you for the opportunity to come and brief you on the last Library Advisory Commission meeting, which was Monday, May 16th. The commission met via Zoom teleconference. We started our meeting with an update from Jesse Silva on programs and services inside SC County Correction Facilities. And as I see, board members will have the benefit of the same presentation on the agenda later today. Let me share that commissioners not only appreciated the overview of this important and impactful program, but also agreed with public comments that we received that the power of this work should be shared even more broadly with our community. So we encouraged library leadership to spread the word on the incredible impact that some of these less well-known programs have in our community. The commission also made a couple of motions as part of our general business agenda. All of the motions were unanimous. The first motion was to approve a policy regarding the display of commemorative flags. Commissioners reviewed two options for a commemorative flag policy, one that placed the approval process for displaying commemorative flags in the hands of the Library Advisory Commission, and one where the display of commemorative flags would be consistent with library jurisdiction location. Commissioners voted unanimously in favor of the first policy option, emphasizing that the LAC approval authority was appropriate and would ground the policy in the library's mission and strategy, while also creating greater alignment and consistency across our 10-branch system. The second motion endorsed the proposed 2022-23 Library Joint Powers Authority budget. So commissioners discussed the anticipated vacancy rate savings, and were encouraged to hear that this would be reviewed in the next budget cycle to remain aligned with staffing model changes and adjustments as all branches come back online. Commissioners were also glad to see that there were increases made in strategic areas such as capital outlay and staff training. And finally, commissioners remain focused on ensuring that the library budget can support the desired service levels, and are intently focused on upcoming adjustments to ensure that that is the case. We closed the meeting with similar reviews of upcoming reopenings, and everyone's very excited about the Garfield Park reopening Saturday, June 11th. I'm sure many members of the commission will be there. I hope you all will too. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Are there any questions or comments from our board members?
Yeah, I had a comment. I just wanted to thank you, Lindsay, for your work on the flag policy. I know that's something that we wrestled with and we continue to wrestle with in our own jurisdictions. So we appreciate your commission willing to take on the task, which at times can be quite difficult. It doesn't often happen, but every now and then it becomes a big issue that requires a lot of work. So I really do appreciate your consideration of it and your thoughtful recommendation. Thanks.
All right, and if there are no other comments at this time from board members, I'll ask if there are any members of the public that would like to comment on Lindsay's report.
Chair Bass, there are no public comments.
Okay, great. Okay, well, thank you so much, Lindsay. We really appreciate you being here with us today. Okay, so we're ready to move on to our consent calendar. So all items on the consent calendar will be enacted by one motion in the form below unless a board member requests that an item be pulled from the consent calendar. So any board member requests to remove an item from the consent calendar?
I'd like to pull 8H.
Okay. Any others? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar minus item H.
Move approval of consent.
I'll second that.
And a roll call vote, please.
Director Palacios,
Yes.
Director Goldstein,
Yes.
Director Hoffaker,
Yes.
Chair Legault.
Yes. So the consent calendar passes unanimously minus item H. So let's go ahead and discuss that item. Board Member Goldstein.
So I just had, so the item H, for those of you who are just tuning in, is the adjusting the meeting schedule for the remainder of this year. And I think it's to sync it up with the new LFFA schedule. And I just want to be 100% clear. I've been asking about whether or not the LFFA, whether we needed to be meeting every time the JPA was meeting, because the work had been more administrative at that point with the LFFA, given that we've already issued most of the debt except for the City of Santa Cruz. So I just want to be, I'm okay making the change if staff is recommending it, but I wasn't suggesting that we cut back on our JPA board meetings. I was thinking more of the LFFA and that we would just have JPA meetings. So I just want to make sure the record's clear. I was suggesting that the LFFA could be pared back, not the JPA itself. So if this is recommended by staff to go to this new schedule, you think there's performance advantages, I'm fine giving it a chance, but I just want everyone to be clear that that wasn't coming from me here.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Chair Legault. I'm happy to just provide a little bit of information with regard to Director Goldstein's comments. Yes, we do believe that this will be the more efficient way. What we are presenting to the Joint Powers Authority Board are also typically our quarterly statements on statistics. And we need some time, when the quarter closes March 30th, we don't have those statistics available, much like our treasurer, Ms. Driscoll. We need several days and time to gather all that data. And so by syncing these to those quarterly statements, it really does make the job easier for our staff to be able to put together more robust reports that really provide good information for our board to be able to use to make decisions. There certainly could be more meetings of the Joint Powers Authority Board. Certainly, we would be able to tell you a little bit more about things that we're doing, the types of presentations, but we also believe that we could get that information in those quarterly meetings. And as I said, there is the requirement that the board does meet in May and June. And so we want to make sure that we're honoring those to review the budget. But the rest of the meetings really could sync up with the quarterly reporting that we do.
Thank you for that explanation. Any other comments from board members on this item? I'll just also note in the staff letter, it calls out as well that we can always call a special meeting if something else comes up that is more time sensitive than waiting until the next quarterly meeting. So if we try this, we can see how that works. Are there any members of the public that would like to comment on this item?
Chair Legault, there are no public comments at this time.
Okay, then I would entertain a motion regarding the revised annual meeting schedule for 2022.
I move approval of the revised annual meeting schedule for 2022.
Second.
Thank you. And a roll call vote, please.
Director Palacios,
Yes.
Director Goldstein,
Aye.
Director Hoffaker,
Yes.
Chair Legault.
Yes. Thank you. That motion passes unanimously, and we're ready to move on to our general business, which is the approval of our fiscal year 23 Santa Cruz Public Library budget.
Thank you, Chair Legault. This is an item for the board seeking board approval of our fiscal year 2023 operating budget for the Santa Cruz Public Libraries. We also reviewed this budget with the board at our May meeting. There were a few changes that were requested at that time. So I will call your attention to page 61 in your packet, which is the budget overview. We had some requested information regarding our fund balance, and then the reserves are now shown, as well as the balances of our trusts, which have been included in that chart there. And then in the appendix, you will find kind of the detailed descriptions about those trusts and kind of what our limits are with regard to those. And also, I believe we've got a full list of our positions. Previously, we were showing that as a sort of combined statement, but we are now listing those all out individually, as we note that continues to be, it's going to be a big piece of our hiring a lot of people this year and reopening all of our libraries. So we wanted to make sure you have that information. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you might have. And we also have our principal management analyst, Kira Hennepin, is also on the call to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. First, any questions from our board members regarding the budget information? Director Goldstein, looks like you have a question.
Yeah, I did have a question. First off, I want to thank staff for the work that you guys did between the draft budget and this budget. I'm confident that the changes are really positive and that we're going in the right direction. So I really want to thank everybody for the hard work. I did have a question on consent. Oh, shoot. Using a touch screen rotated to look at the budget got me there. On consent, we approved a fund transfer, I thought, for about $300,000 into a capital fund. Is my memory correct there? And I don't see, so is that capital fund outside of this budget, or is that where is that? So when we transferred $300 and something thousand, I'm assuming it's no longer in our available fund balance for next year. Is there a capital fund somewhere with a fund balance that's not here, or help me out?
Kira, would you like to answer that?
Yes, I can. So yes, in the consent agenda, you did just approve 340, I can't remember, 300,000 for the capital, and that is moving it out of the operating budget into a separate fund. So if you're looking at page 61 in the packet, down under equipment reserve is where that's showing. So it was $473. We added the 300 and some $1,000 to make that equipment total 807. If you see that down there in equipment reserve. So we assumed that that would be approved. And so we have accounted for it here. Also in the operating budget, we have shown that as a full expenditure. So that's why the fund balance will grow as well.
Okay. Thank you so much. I think I got a little bit confused about whether it was a capital fund or an equipment fund, but makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
I had a couple of comments, if that's okay. One is just an overall comment and / question. We continue to generate very large fund balances every year, and this has been going on for many years. And so I'm assuming that it seems to be generated mostly just from vacancies and our difficulty recruiting and retaining staff, and therefore we generate lots of salary savings. So am I correct in that that's the main issue that we've had in terms of generating these quite large fund balances?
I think that's a big part of it. And I'll let Kira jump in here as well, but I think that's a big part of what's been happening, specifically with regard to the pandemic. As you know, a number of people have changed jobs and are continuing to change jobs. And so it has been challenging for us to hire and retain staff, but also our branches have been closed. And so there wasn't really the need for us to hire staff. I do anticipate that we do have some larger one-time projects that we'll be doing. We know that we're going to be moving some staff, our library information technology department over to the administration building, as well as our collection management services. And so there'll be some one-time charges that will occur from that. We've also have probably some big one-time purchases with regard to updating all of our computer equipment. Our computers are in desperate need of replacement and throughout the system. And especially as we bring on our new branches and we open those up, we'll be making those purchases as well. So we do anticipate that while that has been growing, that we will see that start to diminish as we begin to open all of our branches and then put these one-time purchases in effect. And Kira, if you have anything additional that you'd like to add to that, that would be great.
Yeah, I would just piggyback on what Carlos mentioned and just mention that because some of the building projects have been postponed, that we budgeted for them to open and then they were postponed due to supply changes. So I would say that is one other piece of information in the fund balance growing.
Okay, that seems to be reasonable. I think it's just as we go forward, we're going to be needing to make sure that as we increase the MOE contributions and the contributions from the county library fund, that we are able to deal with the fact that more than likely the fund balances will be decreasing over time as we finish the one-time expenditures that we're making due to the expansion of the libraries, and then we have more retention of staff. Because I see that often we're adopting a budget that's relying on fund balance, which is we all do that, so it's not unusual. But this is a particularly large fund balance, and so it can get you a little bit nervous. Although we have good reserves too, so that's another case. But on the other hand, the fund balance that we're relying on to adopt our budget is fairly large, and larger than we do in our city and county budgets. Typically, we all rely on fund balance because we know that to some extent there's always going to be salary savings and so forth. But on the other hand, these have been fairly large. So anyway, it's something to keep in mind. Second comment I had was that I noted that the Seattle Public Libraries, on a visit there, I noted that they have these positions called community resource specialists. And these community resource specialists are actually social workers. They're masters of social work, and they actually work in the library. And they have two main functions. One is to, I don't know where, okay, I see my screen rearranged. One is that it's disconcerting when your screen. In any event, they provide information on public services, county social services to the public, but they also work very specifically with people who receive those services and with the unhoused, and they make a special effort to work with the unhoused. And so it's interesting right now, we are in the process of forming a public defender's office. July 1st, we're gonna have our first public defender's office. It's moving from a private contract to within the county staff. And in that, we are doing something where we're hiring social workers in the public defender's office, because we realize a lot of those folks can benefit by having somebody to help guide them through the system to get more resources. So right now, there's a lot of resources available in our behavioral health department. So in the county, both in the social work side and in the behavioral health side, there's a lot of new resources that the state is putting forth. In addition, there's a major reform called CalAIM, which is a reform of the way that Medi-Cal is distributed to counties. That is also going to provide a lot more opportunities for resources. The challenge is that none of these new resources are ever 100%. They all require a local match. And that's always the difficulty, because we have to do it with general fund. But we do have in the county, our library county fund, which we transfer over an amount to the library every year, but it is capped somewhat depending on the MOE contributions that the cities are making as well. And so we have a fund balance. We've been using that fund balance to augment our capital campaign as we built our new libraries. But now that the capital campaign is coming to an end, we will have these potential resources. The other thing is that the money to leverage the money, it has to be positions have to be funded within our health services agency. We can't really leverage them if they're library employees. So anyway, it's just something I want to put out there as a possibility that I would like to explore with Director Wilburn and library staff. And also, but I wanted to let the board, just alert them that I wanted to start exploring it. And then of course, anything would come back to the board, because the idea would be to hire a few of these community resource specialists. They more than likely would work in the county health services agency, but they would be assigned to the libraries and would have to have some kind of matrix supervision between the behavioral health director and the library director. But they would provide additional resources to your staff to provide services to the unhoused as they come to the libraries. I noted in your strategic plan and that safety and all these other issues are part of your goal and providing additional resources. So this would be an opportunity to provide more resources, then leverage local funds that we're getting and draw down federal and state funds. So, we're getting potentially 80–90% of it drawing down from federal or state funds, but you have to have that local match. And so that's something I'd like to explore, and I'd like to, Director Wilburn, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. And then maybe if it's worth exploring, we can continue the discussion with our county health services agency director.
I definitely think that's really, we'd love to explore that. And as you know, we have a great need for those services in our library spaces. So I'm happy to explore that more.
And I'd just like to add too, it's something that many libraries do. San Francisco's, I think, was one of the first that took advantage of that. And then when I was supervising libraries in Salinas, we saw a dramatic reduction in our calls to police when we contracted with social workers. So there's this also net savings for the whole community in that regard as well.
Right. Well, it seems like a great opportunity, and it seems like we know that with regard to the issues that we all face with regard to the unhoused, and this idea of finding a way to provide them more resources and more connection to services benefits everybody. And it's also a shame to leave funds that are available, federal and state funds, not drawing down on them because we can't find the local match. And so trying to be creative about that. So anyway, I'll explore it, and then we'll start meeting with our health services agency staff about some potential models, and then meet with the board at a later date if there's anything that seems like a possibility.
Thank you. Director Goldstein, is your hand still up?
It is. It's gone up and down a couple times, and I apologize. Mostly just because I think I just finally connected the dots on this capital and equipment fund. So I do have a question on 68 of the budget, which is the overall summary of operating systems expenditures. And the bottom subtotal there is $512,000, and that's comprised of a couple of big line items: computer equipment, other capital outlay, and then transfers out for vehicle replacement. My question is, what's the relationship between that 512 and then the fund we just talked about? My earlier question, which is I believe it was like around $800,000 that we were establishing in a capital or an equipment fund, the 807. Is that what? So I think my question hopefully is clear. We have, for example, I think it's $54,000 or something proposed in a vehicle replacement fund transfer. Where's that going, I guess? And what's the relationship between that line item, that subtotal, and then that fund? Thanks.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. So the relationship is that all of our capital maintenance funds are together in that equipment fund. I think after hearing your feedback, we'll separate that fund out. So the fund does include a vehicle replacement fund, and then also includes a capital maintenance fund or capital outlay fund. And right now you're seeing those together as equipment reserve. Like I said, the pager, the 68 that you're referring to, we're showing as that line spent. And so those monies then were transferred as into the capital outlay fund.
Yeah, so that's the 521 from this year. That's shown as an estimated actual. It's spent, it's out of our general fund, it's over into that other account. And then for the new money, the 512 for this year, presumably that's going to be added to the fund balance in that fund, right?
The 2023 monies will be spent in 2023. And if there's any that we need to move at the end of 2023, we'll come to you again in June to move those monies.
Okay.
So we're building a capital outlay expense for one-time future projects if need be. Otherwise, we're trying to use those capital outlay funds for opening the branches and possibly other big maintenance projects that come up during the year.
Okay. I think I understand. Great, thanks.
Any other questions from board members? All right, so I'll ask for the community if there's any public comment on this budget.
Chair Legault, there are no public comments.
Okay, bringing it back to the board then, if there's any further discussion, or I would entertain a motion regarding approval of the fiscal year 22-23 budget.
I would move approval, and I just again want to thank Yolande and the team, Kira, for being responsive to the board's comments from the first hearing and putting together a really thoughtful budget for the year ahead.
And I'll second that.
All right, roll call vote, please.
Director Palacios,
Yes.
Director Goldstein,
Yes.
Director Hoffaker,
Yes.
Chair Legault.
Yes. Okay, motion carries. And so as a reminder, our next item B, presentation on our general business, is going to be postponed and not heard today. And so we'll move on to comments by board members. Have any comments? And then next is our upcoming meeting schedule. Which again, we had that earlier conversation that it aligns with our other meeting schedule. And so if there aren't any comments about our upcoming meeting schedule, then I think we are ready to adjourn. Good. All right, then we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.